What's up, family? We've been rocking with each other long enough where we can just be honest with each other. And I need you to be honest today. How many of you have had money fights with your significant other? How many of you have gone back and forth about monies that came in or monies that needed to go out? As a matter of fact, right now, a lot of individuals are expecting a large amount of money back in their income taxes. And so during this time, it's important for us to have some good conversations and not have arguments. And that's why we're coming to you with this particular video, Couples and Money. We want to give you the secrets to success. Listen, we've tried to pour into you on various levels, and we want to keep on doing that. And one way to do that is to talk about how we can be successful as couples as it relates to dealing with our money. So please watch this video. Please share this video with someone else. We hope that you're going to be blessed. We got some more coming your way. Listen, enjoy it, share it, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. For today, we're talking about couples and money. And as I thought about this presentation, as I was preparing for this, there's a couple of things that always happen when you talk about couples and money. And the first thing that always happens is that you struggle to get both parties in the relationship to be present. One will come and then they take the information back to the other person, but it's very difficult. Not saying that it doesn't happen, but it's very difficult to get both parties to the presentation at the table to talk. And I think the reason why is that one of the parties always thinks that the presentation is for the other person. Or the other party feels like it's going to be an attack on what the other individual in the relationship has already been saying to them. But here's the reality, something that we need to know. 44% of all couples argue about money at least once a month. That's almost half. And that's what's been reported. But 44% of all couples argue about money at least once a month. And what I've come to find is that your financial happiness, your financial success is based upon one thing, and it is not based upon how much money you make. What I have come to find is that financial happiness, financial success as a couple is based upon your ability to communicate. Now, it's important to understand that there is a difference between good communication and bad communication. Those of you who are familiar with the Bible know that in Acts chapter 5, there was a couple by the name of Ananias and Sapphira. These individuals had some property. These individuals decided to sell some property, and they said, we're going to take what we have and we're going to give it to the church. We're going to put it in a pot. The church was taking their money and they were making sure that everybody's needs were taken care of. And so they said, we're going to put it in a pot like everybody else has been doing. But it was almost like 2021, 2020, where the value of their particular house just skyrocketed. They got more for their house than they thought they would. And when it became time for them to turn it in, they communicated and said, we're going to hold back a little bit. This is important. It's not just communication that helps for success, that helps for happiness, but good communication, positive communication. And I want you to know that it's not about how much money you bring in that determines whether or not you should communicate. As a matter of fact, we see that it's not even the amount of money that you make that determines how happy you're going to be in your relationship. How do we know that? Well, all you got to do is cut on the news, cut on the TV, open up a magazine, and you will read about some famous couple who has multiple millions of dollars who's deciding to do what? To divorce. Because despite the fact that they had a large amount of money, the money that they had does not determine their happiness or dictate their ability to get along. And so the focus for today, what you're going to hear me repeat over and over again in this presentation, is the importance of communicating. And what I want you to know is that you can use your money in your relationship as a tool to strengthen your relationship. That's right. Your money is supposed to be looked at as a tool that is used to strengthen your relationship. Now, there's other components, going to church, being a part of a small group, making sure that you interact with other couples. These are other tools that you use, but money is also a tool that you can use to strengthen your relationship. And so I hope you have your paper and pen with you, or pencil. I'm gonna give you a couple things that I have found that are essential if we're going to use money as a tool to strengthen our relationship. I did not say marriage. Notice that, because I recognize that there may be some people on this line who are not yet married. You might be dating someone. And that leads me to the first point. You're dating, you're in a relationship, you're not yet married. This leads me to the first point. First takeaway, first thing that we have to recognize if we're going to use money as a tool to strengthen our relationship is that we do not combine our funds until after marriage. Oh man, we do not combine our funds until after marriage. Listen, I've seen it happen over and over again. I'm also including in this thing co-signing. Do not co-sign. Just imagine with me for a moment. You're in love with this person, y'all dating. You've co-signed on that couch that y'all are gonna put in the living room, and then y'all decide to break up. What y'all gonna do? Cut the couch in half? Or are you expecting for that individual, right, who has that couch in their living room, are you expecting for them now to give you back your half of the money that you contributed? So I'm gonna say this. I'm not gonna say that in a relationship with an individual that you cannot exchange money, but I will say this, count it as a gift. I know individuals who have no debt, right? And their significant other, right, that they're dating, or maybe they're engaged to, has some debt. I know individuals who've said, you know what, I want to pay off their debt so we can both be debt free. If you're going to do that, give it as a gift. But do not combine your finances until you become one. That's the first thing. And then after you become one, after you've joined together in holy matrimony, then it's time for you to combine your funds. Before you get married, there should be a yours and there should be a mine, there should be a his and there should be a hers. After you get married, I submit to you that it's okay. I'm gonna tell you why in just a second. It's okay for you to still have the yours and the mine, but you need to also develop a ours. O-U-R-S, ours. And here's the reason why. The first step, so after you've gotten together, you're official now in your relationship, you have come together and become one in marriage. The first thing that you need to do is start communicating your dreams and or your goals. Sit down with your spouse and say, hey, in 5 years, this is where I would like to be. In 10 years, this is where I would like to be. In 20 years, this is where I would like to be. And both of you are sharing your goals, your desires. Listen, when you come together as one, it is not an opportunity for you to come together and die, but you all come together and you both support each other in the dreams, right? You journey with each other on the dreams that you have for your life. But this takes you taking the time to actually communicate with each other. And as you're communicating, you want these goals to be collaborative. You want it to be something that both of us are pouring into, both of us are making happen, both of us are contributing to, both of us are invested in. And that's why it's important that you take the time to sit down and put everything together. Let me ask you, it's football season right now. Have you noticed that in every game, every team, no matter what jersey that they have on, before they run a particular play, they go into the huddle? Have you noticed that? You know the reason why they're going into the huddle? They're communicating the goal. Depending on how much time is on the clock, they may go for a touchdown or they may go for a field goal. Maybe their goal is just to get a first down, just get a little bit closer, or maybe they're going to go over the top. But they come together in the huddle and they talk about what it is they're hoping to accomplish. And then this feeds the next level. Now that we've communicated our dreams, we develop a plan. And I submit to you that this plan has to be realistic. Now we can dream, and I'm a dreamer. I like to dream big, but my wife does a great job of bringing me back down to reality and saying, hey, I know that this is what you want to do, but we have to be honest about our ability to accomplish what it is that we're setting forth to do. See, as a couple, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, as a couple, you make $50,000 a year as a couple. And so your regular bills, just stay with me for a moment, your regular bills, your regular cost of living is $45,000. But you have a desire this year to go on a vacation. And that vacation is going to cost you $10,000. What are you saying? When you make this plan, you dreaming big and you start putting together this plan, what are you saying? You're actually saying then that we're going to adjust how we're living, right? And maybe we cut down that $45,000 that we spend on a monthly basis. Maybe we cut it back to 40, and that gives us the room, right? The 10 that we need to go on vacation. Or maybe we're saying, you know what? We're consciously going to go into this year, still do the 45. We only have 5 that we can put with that. So we're going to borrow the other 5 from somewhere. I submit to you, even in that, it's important that you communicate, because if you borrow from somewhere, what you borrow is expected to be paid back. And so now every time you borrow, that's another bill that's being added, that's consuming. So now you're adding whatever it is that you borrow, those payments now get added to that 45,000 that you're spending on a yearly basis. I hope that you all are still with me. And so it's important for us to communicate. And when we're communicating, we're being realistic about what it is we want to accomplish. And the way that we communicate best, I found, is by having a budget. By having a budget. And I want to make sure that we understand that budgeting is not you at the end of the month looking back over everything you spent and checking off a list to say, oh, okay, now I know where that money went. That's not budgeting. That's just recalling what you spent. Budgeting is you sitting down before the month begins and saying, we have this amount of money coming in. These are the things that we're expecting to do in this month. These are the goals that we have that we need to contribute to for the future, but this is what we have coming in. These are our obligations for this particular month. And you sit down and make up a plan to say, how is it that we're going to accomplish all of our goals and achieve all of our obligations with what it is that we have coming in? It's important for you to understand too, that your budget has to be based upon what you're actually making. And this is why it's important for it to go beyond just being yours and mine to being ours. This is why it's important for us to make sure that we put everything together, that everything's on the table, and what we look at is what's coming in, and we give every dollar a name. And at the end of our budget, we should be at $0. Before the month begins, we should be at $0. Even if that means you have some money left over at the end of your thing, then you send that over to savings if you haven't already done that. Or if you notice you have some money on your thing, then maybe you get to go and spend a little extra time, or go out on a date, or give to the church, or give to some organization that you want to give to some individual who's in need. But every single dollar has to have a name before the month begins. And what this does when you sit down and you're looking at your budget, it allows you to revisit the plan that you made, the dreams that you've set, the goals that you set. It allows you to see if those dreams are truly realistic, and if there are some just adjustments that need to be made in your financial life to facilitate those dreams and goals that you said you wanted to achieve. Or are you going to forego those dreams and goals for this year and maybe come back and try to do those 5 years from now or 2 years from now? It is important, y'all, that we communicate with individuals what it is, with our spouse, our significant other, what it is that we desire to do, and then put together a realistic plan to achieve that. Can I be honest with you all, give you a testimony of a personal experience I had with this? Me and my wife were working towards a goal. And I'll be honest with you, some goals that we set forth, they don't happen overnight. This particular goal was a goal that we wanted to achieve, and it took us 18 years to achieve it. 18 long, grueling, dedicated years to achieve it. And here's what we learned. After we achieved it, we looked back and we realized that though we had set the plan, we had missed out on being realistic and intentional about even setting a deadline for the achievement of the plan. So in my mind, when we set the goal 18 years prior, I was expecting for us to achieve that goal in 2 years. For my wife, she was expecting for us to achieve that goal in 10 years. And so now, as we're on this journey now, I'm moving very, very fast and making recommendations with the goal of achieving this particular task in 2 years. But what happens, because we're not communicating, I get to a point where I'm almost running over my wife to achieve this goal. It's at breakneck speed. And I don't know if you've ever gone out running with someone who just runs at a different pace, and you've tried to keep up with them, and you tried to keep that smile on your face, and they kept asking you, are you okay? And you were like, yeah, I'm good. But deep down inside, you like, you about to die. That's how it was for my wife. While on the other hand, so we would have some times over this 18 years where we would go on vacations with friends. We would pursue purchases of cars and other things. And I'm gonna be honest, we would be on vacation and we would be having a good time. But while we're there, because my mindset is we could be done with this in 2 years, every dollar we spent was frustrating for me. Every time we came back from vacation, I would say, man, that money could have went towards this, and we would have been done by now. We would achieve my goal of being done in 2 years had we put that money towards this. My wife is having a great time. She's not as burdened by what's going on because she's looking at us doing this in 10 years. And so while I'm running too fast, and that's killing her and causing conflict in the union, on the other side, she's going too slow, right? And I don't know if you've ever been with somebody and they walk slow and you just be like, yo, we just gonna meet at this destination because you just taking too much time. Well, that's what we were. And this is why it's important to sit down with your mate, with your spouse, and share the plan, be realistic about what needs to happen, make adjustments as you're going through, and be honest about the adjustments that need to be made. And what I found, this last point on using money as a tool to allow you to achieve success and to have happiness in your union. The last thing that I found that is vitally important, that helped us, is that you need to institute an allowance for each other. And this is, again, why it's important to put everything together in one pot. And as you put everything together in one pot, now you look at the pot and you say, based upon the bills that we have, based upon the dreams that we have, based upon the goals that we're pursuing, how much are we able to allocate to each one of us having free ability to just live life? Here's the thing. Ladies, you might want to go out with the ladies and just have a good time. You should be able to do that. Guys, you might want to go hang out with the guys. You should be able to do that. You might have a friend that needs to borrow some money from you. And you don't necessarily want to come home and be like, hey, babe, can we pull some money out of this place where it's already allocated to something to give to so-and-so? What I found is that by having an allowance, a personal allotment that each person gets every single month, is it takes away the frustration. It takes away the need for ladies to hide purses in the trunk of the car, hide those purchases in the back of the closet, to hide those things under the bed. Listen, what it does is it frees you up to make some personal decisions. This is why I said it's important to have the hours, but you can keep the his and the hers. You can keep the yours and the mine accounts, because that the allowance that you get every month is going to go into these respective accounts. And what it does is it frees you up to just live life. And I'll be honest, in my relationship, my wife is a person who, she takes her allowance and she'll spend it every month. Whereas me, I hold on to my money and I'll wait 3 months or I'll wait 6 months, and then I'll just go do some major spending. And so just imagine that, don't take this as law. I'm just giving you an example. Imagine that our monthly allowance per person is 500. Notice that I said we both get the same amount, 500. It's not based upon you get your allowance based upon what you make, and I get my allowance based upon what I make. Nope, we're putting it in a pot. We're looking at this pot and we're saying, from this pot, how much can we equally receive? So let's say, hypothetically speaking, in my marriage, it's $500 a month per person. So my wife gets to go and she gets to spend every month $500 doing whatever she wants to do. I can't get mad now when I see her coming in with bags every single day. But on the other hand, because I'm a person who likes to stack my money up, 3 months from now, I may go spend, and I said this is hypothetically, but I may go spend $1,500, or I may go spend after 6 months $3,000. And here's the thing, she can't say anything about it, because this is my allowance. This allows me to go and still be an individual while still working towards the corporate goals that we have going on. This is important. This creates a level of freedom that just enhances. Remember, I said your money is supposed to be a tool that strengthens your union. You're just using this money to help create happiness in your union, to help create success. You're achieving goals together in your union, but the money is not something that should cause friction and fights every single month if you're doing what I'm sharing with you today, if you're communicating. And so now there's another level to this thing. There's another level to this thing. Your money, this tool that is used to enhance your marriage, right? To strengthen your marriage, is also a tool that can be used to develop your develop your legacy. Because your tool should not just be something, if it's created success for you as a couple, you should want it to be duplicated for other couples, and you should want it to be duplicated for other generations who may come after you. And so the way that you use your money to develop and to strengthen your legacy, I got 4 points for that. I hope you again have your paper and your pen and that you're writing this thing down. But I want to give you 4 points that I found as ways by which we can use this tool to solidify our legacy, and then we'll go into some question and answers. And so what I found is that, first of all, let me share with you a scripture that I was reading this thing, and it just hit me a little different this particular time that I was reading. It's in the book of 2 Kings chapter 4. You may be familiar with it. There was a prophet at that time by the name of Elisha, and Elisha was moving around, and he was approached by this widow. Her husband had died, and she came to Elisha and said, listen, you know, my husband was faithful. You know, he was a man of God. You know, he did what he could to serve people. And she said, here's the thing, he died, and now the creditors are coming, and they're going to take my 2 sons. They were going to make them indentured servants to pay off that time that was owed by the husband who was no longer around. And I don't know, the text doesn't say whether they communicated how much debt that they had amassed, but the text does say that when he died, she was left with the responsibility of paying this debt. And it got to a point where it was also affecting their children. And as I read this text, I said, Lord, please help me see what I can do to make this not be my wife's lot in life, and what can be done by my wife to make sure that this is not my lot in life. In the event that something unfortunate happens to either one of us, Lord, help it be that we don't find ourselves burdened by the decisions that were made in the midst of our union, but help us be free and able to move about as a result of making some sacrifices and some decisions right now. Help us to secure our legacy. And so here's the thing that I found that works for us to be able to secure our legacy, to allow this tool, this money that we have as a couple right now, to enhance not just our relationship, but to enhance our family as well. The first thing that I found is that as a couple, you need to focus on your spouse before your children. Ooh-wee. Listen, you can write this stuff down. We'll talk about it. We got time for question and answers in just a second. But what I found that is important is you need to focus on your spouse first and not your children. What are you saying, Pastor? I'm so glad that you asked. There are individuals who do a good job of making sure that their children have all the things that their children desire right now. Even myself, even my family, we've done a great job, I believe, of sending our children to Christian education. We've sent them to academy. My daughter's right now in academy, and it's not free. It costs. And then my son has gone off to Oakwood. He's in college now. It's not free. It costs. And then we've talked about what if they want to go to grad school? Are we going to cover their grad school as well? It's not going to be free. It's going to cost. And what I'm saying, while we have the desire to do these things for our children, to make sure that when Christmas comes around, they have the best Christmas, to make sure that they get all the gadgets and cell phones and all of these things that they may like, those things are nice to be able to do. But here is the question. Are you making decisions right now to solidify your children that could cause a burden for your spouse if something unfortunate happens to you, where you're no longer able to be there with them? And so as I asked that question, as I really pondered that, there were a couple things that I found that are important that we need to do in focusing on our spouse and focusing on ourselves. We need to make sure that we are putting monies into retirement. The hope is that you will work and then one day you'll be able to retire. But it's important for us to understand, and this could be putting money into your 401k, this could be putting money into your Roth IRA, but here's what is important for us to understand. Your cost of living is oftentimes going to be greater when you get older than it is when you're younger. And so if we have not put up anything to help us out when we get older, it's possible that we can be living a tougher life when we get older, when our cost of medication has gone up, when our ability to go to work has decreased, when we're not able to move and have our being the way that we used to have it. If we're not careful when we get to the later years, because our cost has increased, it can become a great weight for us. Can I just be honest with you all that I've had conversations with individuals and heard stories of individuals who in their golden years, if you will, were eating dog food because they didn't have enough money to go to the grocery store. Think about this for a moment. You've taken your time and you've poured into your children as they were growing up. You've made sure that they had all of these things. You made sure that you put them first. And now you've gotten older, your cost has increased. You don't want to put the burden on your children. And so now you're eating dog food because you don't want to burden your children by telling them you don't have enough money to go to the grocery store. I'm talking about real stories. Or maybe you do have that relationship where you can call your children. Is it fair for your children to now, while they're trying to build their own life and take care of their own children, now have the burden of also trying to take care of mom or dad? And so there are decisions that we can make right now. And these are not always easy decisions, but there are decisions that we can make right now that can help make things better for us in the long run, and also make things better for the generation that's coming behind us. And the way that you do that is you plan for retirement right now. I don't know if you want to be 95 years old still working at Walmart. Maybe you want to be there because you just want to go out and interact with people. But do you want to have to get up at 95 and go work 40 hours a week at Walmart? Or do you want to be able to go there because you have a choice? And if you don't like how things are going, Do you want to have the freedom to be able, someone was saying something the other day. They said they fired their job. Can you imagine that? Not they quit their job, they fired their job. You usually hear people getting fired from their job, but they said they fired their job. They said, you can no longer provide for me what I need. I'm going to do something else. Wouldn't you like the freedom in your old age to be able to do whatever you want to do? Well, it starts by making plans right now. Another thing that I found that is important for us, if we want to use this tool to solidify our legacy, is that we need to invest right now in life insurance. And when I say life insurance, I'm specifically talking about term life insurance, and I'll tell you why. And I know a lot of individuals, they'll come to you and say, no, you need whole life insurance and things like that. But let me just break down for you the reason why I say just right now, investing in term life insurance will do a good job of making sure that your spouse, in the event that something happens to you, because that's what life insurance is for. It's in the event that something happens to you, that you're no longer here, that your spouse, your family will receive a payout from the insurance company as a result of your death. It's life insurance. And so my wife and I, just giving you some information, my wife and I have about $500,000 in life insurance, term life insurance. And we pay about $200, a little bit over $200 a year. And so now that term life insurance is for 30 years. We're paying $200 a year. $200 times 30 years comes out to be $6,000 over the course of that 30 years. Now, here's what people say. What if you don't die? If I don't die over the next 30 years, I will have spent, or we will have spent $6,000. And because we didn't cash it out, you could say we wasted $6,000. Let me show you on the other side though. You have whole life insurance, right? That maybe you'll, instead of paying $200 a year like we're paying, maybe you'll be paying $200 a month. And so now you're looking at $2,400 a year. And you're looking at $2,400 a year, and this is going to cover you for your whole life. And let's say you live another 50 years, right? And so you're paying into this at $200 a month, $2,400 a year for the next 50 years of your life. And your payout on that is going to be $500,000. You will have paid $120,000 over the next 50 years, right? To finally get that payout of $500,000. But because you paid $120,000, you got to take that $120,000 away from that $500,000, which means then that you're actually only getting $380,000 of benefit, right? The reason why I'm encouraging you to get term is because it's only there in case something happens. If you die in that 30-year window, your family will get $500,000 and your family will be able to grieve properly. If you don't die, you've only spent $6,000. And during that time, that 30 years, hopefully your plan that you've put together with your spouse has allowed you to be able to have a savings, right? And you've already put it into your 401k, which is also increasing every single month and definitely every single year. You're seeing increases in these other areas. And so now when you get to the time of retirement, or you get to the time that maybe you die, you've already amassed enough to leave behind for your family. And you've saved, listen, $120,000 minus $6,000. You've saved $114,000 and you're still able to leave for your family the same amount. And so I'm just saying to you, and even if maybe you don't like my numbers, maybe my numbers just didn't give you what you're looking for. What I'm saying is make sure that you have some type of life insurance to where if something happens to you, that your family is able to properly grieve. For some people, it takes a month. For some people, it takes 6 months. For some people, it takes a couple years. And what I decided is that I just want my wife, if something happens to me, to be able to decide whether she wants to go to work this year or not. to be able to decide whether she wants to take off, maybe go back to school, maybe travel, whatever she wants to do, she'll be able to do it if something happens to me. And so it is important for me to make a decision today to make sure that she's taken care of tomorrow. And the last thing before we go to question and answer, is I found that even in this phase, if you truly want to secure your legacy, that you still have to dream and you still have to share with each other, communicate, and pursue new experiences. Can I share with y'all a story real quick? A story on the importance of communication. I told you all my son is at Oakwood University, and recently we had to take him down, and you know, we're in the midst of COVID. And we got to the Oakwood University campus. We had everything packed up. We had stayed the night before, and we were ready to go unload the truck and drop him off and experience all that we had to experience for the day. And we got to the Oakwood University campus, and we got to the gate, and the security guard came out, and I smiled and I said, "Hey, we're here to drop my son off." And he said, "Do you have your COVID shots?" I said, yeah, we've been vaccinated. We're good to go. Come on, let us in. He said, no. I mean, do you have the proof that your test that you do not have COVID right now? I said, no. What are you talking about? What do you mean, do we have it? He said, well, it was communicated with the students that you needed to make sure that you got a COVID test before you got here, and we can't let you on. I said, well, we brought my son down here to drop him off on campus. We drove 6 hours to get here. If we cannot get this test taken within this day, what am I supposed to do with my son? He said, well, I guess you're going to take him back home. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm a pastor, but at that point, I didn't feel very pastorly. I felt like saying some things, and I thank God for shutting my mouth and that I didn't say what I said. But as we drove around to the other side of the campus and began making phone calls, we had to be honest with ourselves about the fact that somewhere in the midst of them communicating with us and us receiving the communication and doing what we were supposed to do, that we did not check off all the boxes. And I could have pointed to my son and said, hey, man, you're the student. You should have told us. I could have looked at my wife and said, hey, you're his mother. You could have checked behind him. She could have pointed at me and said, well, you're the driver. You planned everything out. But at the end of the day, we had to take responsibility and say that we were in the situation that we were in because we failed to communicate. And I submit to you that there are many couples who get to the end of life and find themselves in a difficult situation. And they'll start pointing the finger at each other when each party is responsible. When each party failed to communicate. Maybe it is one person's responsibility to monitor the bills or to take out the trash, but there's nothing wrong with this other person just checking behind to make sure everything is done. And it's not about it's not about the fact that you check, it's how you check. Don't check with accusations, and don't check with the voice that kind of opens up the door for conflict. But when we're sharing with each other and when we're checking to say we're just making sure that we're achieving the goal that we both set out and said we want to do, I submit to you that the conversation becomes a little better. It is my hope that you've been blessed today. It's my hope that you've received something that you can take with you. Use your money as a tool to create happiness and success in your union. But I submit to you that it's going to be important that you communicate. Success hinges on effective communication. All right, now we're going to open up the floor. We got a couple of minutes, time for question and answer. We definitely want to hear from you. There's a couple ways that you can do this. You can simply just press *6. I think there's enough of us where it won't be too much noise. If you got some questions about couples and money, some scenarios that you want to run by us, you can do that. Or you can raise your hand and we'll call on you and you'll be able to speak. But we definitely want to hear from you. Any questions or comments as it relates to couples and money, the floor is yours.
Yes, Pastor. How could there be a balance on both parties?
How can there be a balance on both parts? Can you give me a little bit more information before I answer? I don't want to answer something you're not asking me.
Where both parties have the same goal. One may have one goal and another one has another goal. But bringing those two goals together and balance it out, where that where
Okay.
there's a balance across the board.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking, and thank you for joining. I mentioned this early on that it is important, one, for communication. Communication balance doesn't happen without communication. Even when you're unbalanced, you got to communicate to your spouse and say, hey, we're a little off in this place. But balance also comes with seeing that this is our goal and not just your goal. And so as a couple, you got to sit down. This was the first point. I gave a couple points. I know you jumped on a little later. The first point is that you need to communicate your dreams and your goals with your spouse. And these dreams and goals have to be collaborative. You have to be saying, how can we work together to achieve this goal? I understand this is what you want to do. I understand this is what you always dreamed, but how can I contribute to you achieving that goal, and how can we make it collective? It needs to be collaborative and collective. So how do we now make this our dream, right? You want to move into a house, but do we want a 6-bed? And this is real in my family. When we were looking at a house, we were looking for our first house. I wanted a shack. We had 2 children, my wife and a dog, and I was like, we can live in a small 800 square foot house. Go ahead, get that thing paid off. And my wife was like, no way. There's no way we're going to be in no 800 square foot house. And so we had to have conversations about the type of house, the cost of the house. And once we came to a agreement on that, I mentioned the football teams go into a huddle before they do a play. And so that was us going into a huddle and saying, all right, what's our goal? We want a house. We want our own house. All right, what do we need? We need space for our family. We have kids, we have a dog, we want to entertain, we want people to come over. Okay, these are all the things that we want to do. We're checking off these boxes. We're just dreaming, right? And then after that, we develop a plan, a realistic plan to achieve that goal. But first, we have to see this dream, this goal as our dream and not just your dream. It has to be both of our dreams in order for us both to be invested in this thing. I mentioned, and I'm gonna go to the next person. I mentioned the fact that as me and my wife were pursuing a goal that took us 18 years to accomplish, and sometimes it felt like I was pulling her too fast, and at other times it felt like she was slowing me down. And that was because we did not have a concerted, collaborative vision on where we wanted to be and the time that it was going to take for us to get there. So if you want balance, it is important for you to communicate with each other and make it collective and collaborative. I see the Fields line unmuted. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Bailey.
Yes.
Yeah, can you, thanks, great presentation, elders, definitely appreciate it. I have one question, and I guess one, just clarity. And the first question, the question stems from the previous question. As that question was being asked, I was thinking in my head, as far as, which plan or which plan would be more, I just lost the word, attainable. So for example, if 2 have a goal, and this, I'm just getting your thought, just give me your thought, your thoughts on it. Mm-hmm. If both have goals or both have a plan, how do you come to that agreement? And I was thinking, and maybe you can help me out, I was thinking, which plan is most obtainable, which one that we can obtain first, and then we can move to the next one. Just something that came in my head. I don't know how accurate I am with that, or how off point or basis I am with that. And then the second is not a question, but just clarity. I thought you mentioned that you were going to give us 4 tools to strengthen our legacy, and I have down 3. Could you reiterate those 4? I think it was 4. Am I correct?
It was 4. Yep. Number 1. So let me answer the first thing in regards to which one do we go with, right? So we're both bringing goals to the table, and you could go with the one that is easier to obtain. But here's the problem with that. Always doing that. There are times when individuals in a couple, right? We see things a little different. we'll bring goals to the table. And for me, right, let's say for my wife, what I'm bringing to the table may always be easy for us to accomplish, right? Some people are like, hey, I just want to do just enough, get just enough. And so those things are easy to accomplish. So what happens when you have that person who has big dreams, right? Who has like outside of this world dreams, dreams that are going to take a little bit more time. If we're always going with the ones that are easier to be accomplished, then we never grow as a couple to accomplish those bigger goals. And that person always feels like, hey, we're always doing your thing, we never do mine. So it has to be, and this is back to that balance, it has to be a give and take.
Right.
Some of them may always be easier, but sometimes we got to stretch as a couple to say, all right, well, let's do something a little different. I'm gonna be honest with you. My wife and I, we're looking at a vehicle right now, and our vehicles have always been within a certain price range. Well, she came to the table one day and she's like, I would like to have this particular car, right? And I looked at the price of this particular car and I'm like, yo, what? That ain't in our normal range. So then we had to sit back and say, okay, well, does it make sense for us to go for that range, right? Is it possible for us to get to that range? And if this is something that you truly desire and it will benefit our family in having this thing, and it's not outside of it doesn't cause us to, step away from God or anything like that, let's pursue it. It's a big dream, something we've never done before. So let's go for it. And so, yes, you look at, which one is easier sometimes, but there are other times when you want to stretch. And then I'll also say this, as a couple, if me and my wife cannot come to conclusion on something, we don't do it. So if there is, and this is why I said that allowance comes in and stuff like that, but if we're saying, hey, somebody called us today and they're asking for $5,000, if we can't agree to give them $5,000, if my wife is saying no and I'm saying yes, I don't have the right to go into our joint account and take out that $5,000 and give it to that person that she was adamant about saying she didn't agree with doing. And so that's another element as well, is that if you cannot come to an agreement, you pray about that thing, you sleep on it. At the end of the day, if your spouse is adamant about the fact they don't think that's the move, then listen, or you're adamant about the fact you don't think that's the move, then you have to say, listen, this ain't for us, not right now. Sorry, we can't help you. Or maybe we can meet you at a lower number. Maybe it's $100. The 4 things that you said really quick too. The first one was care for your spouse or plan for your spouse before your children.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first one. Retirement plan, life insurance, still develop and pursue dreams. This was a repeat from the one above, but you still want to develop and pursue new dreams. That's a part of that growing process that I was saying. You still want to grow and stretch the longer you're together.
All right, thanks. And just for clarity, I was thinking once we accomplish, if we went with the goal that we can obtain first, that we don't move to another goal until we fulfill the other spouse's goal. And
Gotcha.
so it's not always bringing a lesser goal to the table. It's that we'll do this goal, and once we accomplish this one, then we'll do that one. But we don't do anything else until that way. It's not one always bringing something to the table. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
No, that's good. That's good. And if I add to that, you do want to, as a couple, as you're pursuing these goals, on any team that you're on, as you're pursuing these goals, you need to kind of pick up some steam. And so that small one kind of allows you to know, oh yeah, high five, we work together. And that creates that excitement now to go on to that next one. So you're absolutely right. Thank you for that question. Anybody else? Questions, comments? We're talking about couples and money. We want to hear from you. We want to spread it out. I see somebody else unmuted. Want to let you know you have the ability. We got about 10 minutes. You have the ability to ask questions. Go ahead, Sister Bailey.
Could you repeat those steps again? Starting with number 1. I'm writing them down. I'm sorry.
Sis? you might have to
Okay. All right.
Here's the thing, I can't do that. I shouldn't have even done that for the last person, because there's a reward attached with our notes, and I know that you got here a little late. So I'm gonna create a problem if you don't come back into this. If you don't come back into this session for the next go round, I will make sure I send them to you.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Fair.
Thank you. And so I got to make note to myself. I'm gonna ask a question from the other section, since I just got asked for the bottom session and everybody has that one. Anybody else? Hey, we want to hear from you. Listen, this is not telling your spouse time or anything like that, but this is questions for couples. Like any question that you have on you know, money, marriage, money, and couples. Like, what is it? I made a comment at the beginning that don't combine your funds until you're married. Some people disagree with that, but there is wisdom in that. But go ahead. Anybody else? We got a good number of people. Go ahead. What you got, bro?
You talk about me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I can go on and on. You also made another comment earlier relating to spouses. Every month they are an argument. There's an argument or about money, and my wife, she stepped out the room now. You also mentioned that when you have these sessions, wives it's always one spouse or the other, never both. So if we have a reward for that, just let me know. But anyway, I had, we don't argue over money once a month, but I did, and she kind of said, well, we have a discussion over. I said, yeah, I think it's important that every month spouses ought to have some type of communication or conversation about the finances. I said, but we're never at each other's throat, like what I believe what you were probably referring to as it relates to finances. But I think that every month there ought to be conversation in the house as it relates to the finances. That's what I was.
No, I agree. And here's the thing that's very, very interesting. Previous generations, the numbers, aren't as good. There was one report that I was reading that 97% of millennials talk about money once a week in their relationships. So we're seeing a shift. And I believe, like, we got to look at how all this stuff compounds, right? So if half of the individuals are talking about money or having money fights on a regular basis, but we know that money fights are the leading cause of divorce, like the thing that contributes to divorce, money fights. And if you look at when separation takes place, like how many times have you sat in a courtroom or seen somebody in a courtroom or heard somebody who went through divorce and they were like, yeah, I'm gonna fight for all my love back. Like, I'm getting every ounce of love that I poured into that individual. No, you don't hear that. You hear the fights about the money. You hear that individual say, I'm taking them to the cleaners. I'm taking them for everything they got. But it's very interesting when it comes to money. It's very difficult for us to sometimes work together. And I believe that success hinges on our ability to communicate. And so you're right. Yes, every single month you should be talking about it. Not fighting about it, talking about it, to make plans and to see if you're still on track. Anybody else have any questions? I see we have Lewis, last name Lewis on. We got somebody on their iPad. We got Sister Coleman. Anybody else, any questions? I see the host has a question. Go ahead, what you got?
Just a quick question about before marriage. What kind of conversation should couples have before the wedding actually happens with regards to money? Excellent question.
I believe that at that time you're putting everything out on the table before marriage, right? You want to know how much that individual has, and listen, if you are engaged to somebody or planning to propose to somebody and they feel like they can't share with you how much debt they have or how much money they're making, like, they might not trust you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so how you planning to line up this major commitment and y'all can't even talk about, what burdens? Because at the end of the day, when somebody asked for help, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, when an individual I got something popped up on my screen. I'm sorry. When an individual comes together with that other person, when you come together as one, it becomes yours. This is now our debt that we're attacking. This is now our Now, I know certain states have agreements that if you've had stuff before you got together, then in a divorce, you're able to break that stuff up. But I mean, at the end of the day, if she had a house before y'all got together, and then you came in and you completely remodeled that house, you put $100,000 into remodeling that house. Is that your house or her house? And what you gonna do? Take all your stuff that you remodeled up out of there? And so I think it's important. It's important too. Some of y'all like, yes. It's important to have a conversation about everything. You're getting to know this person that you are agreeing or committing to spend the rest of your life with. And so when I'm going through counseling with individuals, I encourage them. I say, listen, you want to go get an STD test. Like if this person don't want to go get an STD test and share it with you before you say I do, maybe they got something to hide. And it would be better for you to know all of these things before you say I do. Like, don't be saying I do, and then you get to the end. After you say I do, you get to a point where things are rocky and you start saying I don't. In any counseling session that anybody has ever been in with me, I tell them that my job, premarital counseling, my job is to help them put everything out on the table. And so that when they make their commitment, when things get rough, they can't say they didn't know this thing. And so to answer your question, you need to be talking about everything. You need to go spend some time with the potential in-laws, see what it's going to be like on the holidays. Y'all need to talk about what holidays are big in your family. What holidays are big in your family, right? Because if y'all both have a Thanksgiving obligation for your family, and you always go to one family's place for Thanksgiving, it's going to create issues on the other side. But I mean, I'm recommending talking about everything as it relates to money. You want to put everything out on the table, so that you get no surprises. No surprises. Great question. Great question.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Pastor.
Anybody else? We're going to be closing in 2 minutes. If there's anybody else has a quick question before we close out these rooms, I want to ask you to go ahead and make your voice heard. All right. Thank you all so much for joining. It is my hope that you were blessed, that you took away something from this presentation that will help you to use the money, the tool, for happiness and success. Don't let it be the thing that causes you to argue. Just let it be a tool that just helps you live life together with the person of your dreams. Dream big and dream often, and share those dreams with your significant other. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm gonna say a quick prayer for y'all before we go. Heavenly Father, I just thank you so much for this time. I thank you for the ability to gather together and just to talk about couples and money. I pray, Lord, that each person who's on this line has been blessed. I thank you so much, Lord, for the privilege of gathering together, not just with each other here, but I thank you for your provisions as it relates to a mate. And I just pray that communication will be present in each relationship, that it will help us to use the money that you give us as a tool. Don't let it be the thing that pushes us away from each other, but the thing that helps solidify the dreams that we have, and just use it, Lord, again, as a tool to set a foundation, not just for us, but for those who come after us as well. Continue to bless us as we go forth throughout this day. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen and amen.